It's a 5-person group. It's fairly large. Scrambled eggs super. Big imagination again. Go ahead.
Yes. I don't like to brag and I don't like to boast, said Peter T. Hooper, but speaking of toast, and speaking of kitchens and ketchup and cake, and kettles and stoves and the stuff people bake. Well, I don't like to brag in, but I'm telling you, Liz, that speaking of cooks, I'm the best that there is. Why? Only last Tuesday, when mother was out, I really cooked something worth talking about.
You see, I was sitting here resting my legs and I happened to pick up a couple of eggs and I sort of got thinking it's sort of a shame that scrambled eggs always taste always the same.
And that's because ever since goodness knows when, they've always been made from the eggs of a hen, just plain common hen. What a dumb thing to use, with all of the other fine eggs you could choose.
And so I decided that just for a change, I'd scramble a new kind of egg on the range, some fine fancy eggs that no other cook cooks.
Like the eggs of ruffle-necked salamagooks or salamagooks say they should be good, so I went out and find some as quick as I could.
And while I was lugging them back to the house, I happened to notice a teasel-topped grouse in a tree down the street, and I knew from her looks that her egg and the egg of the salamagooks ought to mix mighty well, ought to taste simply super, when scrambled together by Peter T. Hooper.
So I took those eggs home and I pressed them up and I added some sugar 2/3 of a cup and a small pinch of pepper and also a pound of hersalite sauce that was sitting around. And also some nuts that I taste the stuff and it tastes quite fine but not quite fine enough.
To make the best scramble that ever been made, a cook has to cook the best eggs ever laid. So I dropped country quite rather far out, and I studied the birds that were flitting about.
Okay. I looked with great care at the mop noodle finch. I looked at the big-o-beaked bald-headed grinch. And also I looked at the shade roasting quail, who was roasting right under the rest of Beck's tail. And I looked at the sprits and the funnel wing jay. But I just didn't stop. I kept right on my way. 'Cause they didn't have eggs. They weren't laying that day.
Then suddenly, boy up the hill, a short space, birds, they were laying all over the place. Great big families with uncles and cousins, all laying fine, strictly fresh eggs by the dozens.
Why, I'd have a scramble more super than super. Scrambled egg spurdy to Ferdy Hooper. Special deluxe la Peter T. Hooper.
I pick up the eggs in the most careful way. I only picked those that I knew were grade A. I only took eggs from the very best powers, so I didn't take eggs from the Twitter hours, 'cause I knew that the eggs from those fellows who Twitter,
Taste sort of like dust from inside the bass fiddle. I went for the kind that are mellow and sweet, and the world's sweetest eggs are the eggs of the quid, which is due to those very sweet trout which they eat.
And those trout, well, they're sweet 'cause they only eat works, and works, after all are the world's sweetest frogs, and the reason they're sweet is whenever they lunch, it's always the world's sweetest bees that they munch.
And the reason no bees can be sweeter than these. They all eat blossoms of beeslet trees, and these beeslet blossoms are sweeter than sweet. And that's why I net several eggs from the queen.
But I passed up the eggs of a bird called a strudel. It was a sort of stork, but with a fur like a poodle. For they say that the eggs of this kind of stork are gooey like glue and they stick to your fork. And the yolks of these eggs, I am told, taste like fleece, while the whites taste like very old bicycle grease.
The place I hiked to the roads that I rambled to find the best eggs that had ever been scrambled. I hunted new bird on wide tangled trails through gullies and gorges, down dingles and dales.
I wriggled my way and I crawled at a creep through a forest of ferns that was 40 miles deep, and I mushed through the brush till I found a fine cringer, whose eggs are as big as Pinehead, no bigger.
Then I went for the eggs of a long-legged quail. Now this quail, where she's built just a little bit long.
For her legs are so terribly long that she has to lay eggs 20 feet in the air and they drop with a plop to the ground from there. So unless you can catch him before the eggs crash, you haven't got eggs. You've got long leg hash.
Eggs. I collected 302, but I still needed more, and I suddenly knew that the job was too big for one fellow to do.
So I telegraphed north to some friends near Pozo, which is 10 miles or so just beyond the North Pole, and they all of them jumped in their catamaran, which is sort of a boat made of cedar per height, which they sailed out to sea to go looking for glice, which is sort of a bird which lay eggs on the ice, which they grab with a tool which is known as a squitch, cause those eggs are too cold to be touched with a witch.
And while they were sending those eggs, I got words of a bird that does something that almost unheard of. It is hard to believe, but this bird called the perf lays eggs that are 3 times as big as herself.
How that Pef ever learned such a difficult trick, I never found out, but I found that egg quick, and I managed to get it down out of the nest and home to the kitchen along with the rest.
But I didn't stop then, cause I knew of some ducks by the name of Singlepine Jumsi and Jux, who stroll single file through the mountains of Jums.
Quiet, orderly enough, with their eggs on their thumbs, and some fellows in Zoom who I happen to know just happened to capture 1,000 or so, and they wrapped up their eggs and they're mailed by them by air, marked special delivery, handled with care.
I needed more helpers, and so for assistance, I called up a fellow named Ali long distance. And Ali, as soon as he hung up the phone, picked up a small basket and started alone to climb the steep crags in the jacks of Mount Struku to fetch me the eggs of a Struku cuckoo. Now these Mount Struku cuckoos are rather small girls.
But these mountain struku cuckoos has lots of big poles. They dived from the skies with wild cracking shrieks, and they jabbed at his legs and they stabbed at his cheeks.
With their yammering, clamoring, hammering beaks, but Ali, brave Ali, he fought his way through, and he sent me that egg as I knew he would do, for my scrambled egg super de duper de booper special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper.
In the meanwhile, of course, I was keeping real busy collecting the eggs of 3 eyelash teasy. They are quite hard to reach, so I rode to the top of Ham Ika Shunim, Ika Shunem, Ika Shunam.
Then I found a great flock of southwest facing cranes, and I guess they've got something that's wrong with their brains.
For this kind of a crane, when she's guarding her nest, will always stand facing precisely southwest, so to get up those eggs wasn't hard in the least. I came from behind from precisely northeast.
And I captured the eggs of prickly cactus and laid them up high in the prickly cactus.
Then I went for some jeeps. They're exactly like jobs, but the jeeps live on cliffs and the jobs live on blobs. And seeing how blobs are exactly like cliffs, it's mighty hard telling the jobs from the jeeps. But I know that the eggs that I got from the blobs, if it wasn't a jeeps from the cliffs, was a jobs.
Now I needed the eggs of moth watching's nest, whose bird who's so big, she scares people to death. And this awful big bird, where the reason they name her. The moth watching's nest is 'cause that's how they tame her.
She likes watching moths sort of quiets her mind. And while she is watching, you sneak up behind and you yank out her egg, so I got one of course, with the help of some friends and a very fast horse.
If you want to get eggs you can't buy at the store, you have to do things never done before. Like to get the eggs of one very small duck, we had to pry all of a mountain top up.
Then I heard of some birds who lay eggs, if you please, that taste like the air in the holes of Swiss cheese, and they live in the big Zanzibar trees. So I ordered a tree full. The job was immense, but I needed those eggs and said hang the expense.
I still needed one more, and I saved it for last. The egg of the frightful, bombastic August.
And that bird is so mean and that bird is so fast that I had to escape on deer Ikajest, a fleet-foot beast who can run like deer but looks sort of different. You steer him by ear.
All through with the searching, all through with the looking, I had all I needed. And now for the cooking. I rushed to the kitchen, the place where I stack 'em. I rolled on my sleeves, I unpack 'em and crack 'em.
And shook them and chucked them in 99 pans. Then I mixed in some beans. I used 55 cans. Then I mixed in some ginger, 9 prunes, and 3 pigs.
And parsley quite sparsely, just 22 sprigs. Then I added 6 cinnamon sticks and a clove, and my scramble was ready to go on the stove.
And you know how they tasted? They tasted just like, well, they tasted exactly just like scrambled eggs super the duper, the booper special deluxe a la Peter T. Hooper.
Good job. Nice. Nice. Very interesting.